Hi there, everybody. This is a recording for the WFDA talks. We felt that it was better this way because the internet could be quite a bit difficult from Rwanda, but Kenya is now in the UK and we're going to be doing a recording of this talk. Kenyah Nyameche is a registered family therapist with considerable number of years of experience working with individuals, couples, families and organisations. She's a family systemic therapist, clinical supervisor, a writer, workshop facilitator, public convener and coach. Kenya has special interest in the African diaspora community, economic unity, individual and family transformations. So for this talk, Kenya will be having an interview with me to talk about her work in Rwanda and talk about her experiences as a neurodivergent professional working in her practice in Rwanda and her life experiences of neurodivergent people who live in Rwanda. So welcome, Kenya, and it's a great pleasure to have you with us. I'm going to open up by first of all asking you about your 2 years in Rwanda. And can you tell us something about how your practice has gone in Rwanda and some of those challenges and also achievements that have happened for you?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for this invitation to give this talk. Very much appreciated. It's lovely to talk about the work that I do sometimes, because sometimes it's all in my head. As you said, I've been in Rwanda now for 2 years, and what took me there initially was during lockdown, always hearing about Rwanda through a number of journalists that were quite impressed with the work of His Excellency, Paul Kagame. So I got curious and I thought I'd go along just for a holiday. So initially I went for a holiday, and while I was there, I did notice that there are a number of people with different forms of disability. So there were the visible disabilities that I saw, amputations, which was part of my experience from the past. Tried to do some work, some investigative work around that. Key interest was why they weren't fitted with prosthetics. And then I found out that that's quite a big subject in itself. One of the key components was insurance or choice. Some prefer not to wear prosthetics so that they're believable when they're begging. They have an idea that with a disability they won't find work, and what's left for them to do is to beg. So I looked into that and then later found that there were other organizations and universities that were supporting that area of need. So while I was there, I happened to share my experience of being a neurodiverse professional visiting Rwanda. And I met some parents who were quite interested in how I'm living as somebody who's dyslexic, describes herself as dyslexic. They hadn't heard the term before, so I did share the challenges I've had in the past and still have around reading, writing, memory now going through the menopause, and other challenges. And they then identified that they have a child. One particular parent said they have a child who has dyslexia, and if I could support them by going to the school and discussing with the teachers what dyslexia is. So I did that. And that's when I found that there was a need for a service around different learning abilities, because the school and other schools were not informed. They had some knowledge around autism, which is another neurodiverse different way of living. And yeah, so I showed them, I did a big presentation, and you helped me with that, Catherine. Do you remember I contacted you? I'm going into a primary school and I need some support in introducing different ways of learning, and more specifically dyslexia. So thank you very much for that support. And they were quite interested in that, and they said this is definitely needed. So I started to do my research. I spoke to Immigration and the Ministry of Education. They hadn't heard of dyslexia, um, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and all the others as we know them. They hadn't heard of them. And so I said I could put together a workshop or a conference to give some introductions, but not in isolation. I said I would work alongside other organizations like those providing support around autism. So that's what I offered. And out of that conversation, I began to make some notes about what I could offer. I shared it with Immigration, and Immigration said it wasn't something that they were very keen on, because these areas, these different abilities are invisible. And they felt that as they were invisible, they should remain so, because if I outed them, started talking about it, or bringing people to talk about it, it could cause discrimination. It could cause families to be ostracized, as they had been in the past with autism.
That's a really interesting take, actually, Kenyah. I didn't realise that's what the immigration people said to you. So it does sound like there are not many policies protecting disabled people in Rwanda. Is that correct?
There are policies protecting people with a visible disabilities, but not invisible. Invisible ones are called, they're under a category other.
Yeah, I see. So it's a very different system, isn't it? So how did you find it when you got there?
It was a challenge, because I did start some of the work. So after my holiday, I came back to the UK and started to research. And I did find that they had policies online for special needs. But when I got back and said, can I speak to this particular person named that would have a specialism in this area, they said, to be honest with you, that's just a policy. We haven't implemented it yet. So the phone number that you've been calling doesn't exist. And the email that you've been trying to contact doesn't exist. So that's what I found. There wasn't much support. However, there are a number of organizations, especially around autism, that have been set up by individuals who have lived experience of autism, usually by way of having a child that has autism. And they've been out of the country and got various levels of expertise and assessments, and have come back and have had the passion to set up a program for children with autism. There are other programs in Rwanda, small ones, that has been set up by the VSO and other similar NGO organizations to support their specific group within their specific region. So not all of them are attached to mainstream education. And my passion was really to go and work alongside teachers using the support from the UK. So I'm still working to identify educational establishments who are interested in their students doing a work placement in Rwanda, so that I could support that. But again, it's slowly, because as I've said, the immigration is not too keen on it. And from what I'm gathering from the Ministry of Education, I'm one person. And the other thing they worry about is for me to start promoting it, parents to show an interest, and there not to be any resources.
Oh, yes, yes.
So
you can see their worry, but at the same time, you know, what you're doing is really important. It's giving people a voice, isn't it?
It is. So what I've chosen to do, and that's because I had to have an office, and the office I chose was at Noskin. It's a hub for individual entrepreneurs to come together and work together, and in a shared workspace. So in that space, I can work alongside other professionals and have conversations with them, especially in IT, around how I might use my voice and my lived experience as a neurodivergent professional and practitioner. So working there, I've managed to find out from many professionals that they are having difficulties. they are prepared to talk about their experiences only because I've triggered it. I've triggered the thought in their head that, oh, you know, when I see that on your mobile phone or your computer that your background, your screen background is black and the writing is white, how did you learn to do that? How does that support you? And has it always been this way? Then they get to talk and say, you know what, from how you're describing the indicators for dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, I think I might be, and they'll choose one of the ones I've spoken about. I think I might be that, but I've never heard of the terms that you use. So that's what they would say. And then I will work with them to identify ways that I can support them. So most of it has been a hub. I've set up a consultancy with the government, Rwanda Business Development Board. I've set up a business there, but it's mainly as a consultant and offering counselling and coaching to people that may need the help. So many of the Rwandans who work at this hub can't afford it. So I've literally just been, you know, it's just I've just been investing in my service through private funds. So I haven't asked them for any money, but I have asked them to spread the word, and I have asked if they could give me feedback on any.
That's really interesting what you're saying, Kenyah, because it sounds like you've had to adjust your ideas and vision when you got there to what you found there. So now it sounds like you're doing quite a lot of pro bono work for people who are in need and raising awareness. Is that correct?
Is correct, yes. And now I've been joined by solicitors who want to look at what I do, or they have been looking at it and said, this is in need of a legal structure, a bigger one than an independent entrepreneur. And how about setting up a foundation, they've said, in your name, because you are making a difference. You are starting the conversation. Though I believe other conversations would have been started, and maybe there hasn't been a relay follow through, which is what I would hope to do, that at some point there will be I keep journals of what I do, PDF files and videos. So anybody coming after me would be able to carry on. So they've suggested that I set up a foundation supported by a charity in the UK. So that's what I've come back to do, to set up a charity that will then be the foundation for a foundation in Rwanda. And by doing that, I'm hoping to gather some funding and some benefactors.
So let's just be clear, you're setting up a foundation, but in partnership with an existing charity in the UK.
Well, it will be a charity that I set up. They're talking about that, because if you just go to Rwanda and set up a foundation, you're starting from scratch and you won't be taken seriously. So I have a company, a limited company in the UK, which they're saying switch over to a charity.
Yes.
So then it has some life, because it's around a personal development, right? And that's been in existence for over 10 years now. Changing I Limited, that's been in existence for quite some time now. So.
And the Charity Commission, I believe, have just set up this new status where you can be a charity limited by guarantee. So that means that you can transfer your company, if it's limited by guarantee, quite easily to charity status.
Right. Okay, it's not limited by guarantee, it's just limited by private shares.
Well, the limited by guarantee means that people have a limited liability. That's one of the reasons why they do it.
Yeah.
But it might be a way of transferring. So let's just move on to how you found the life experiences. Let's just dig a bit deeper into that. You have talked a bit, but how have you found the life experiences of neurodivergent people in Rwanda, since you've been there 2 years?
I always start with children. As soon as I'm amongst that question, and because that's what got me thinking about the work. It's poor because a lot of teachers have not been trained in the areas of special needs. So how a child presents in the class, if they are anxious, if they have attention deficit, the teacher finds it annoying and the children are beaten. This is not just in Rwanda, this is all over Africa. Children will be beaten, they will be shouted at, they will be embarrassed in the class. And every time I've spoken to a young person who's left school with no qualifications, and I say, can you ever think about somebody who was sat next to you, or maybe this was you, that when the teacher was teaching, you would look at the board, maybe pay attention for a few minutes, seconds, you'd look away, and then start talking to the person next to you, or throwing aeroplanes, or doing something, and they'll start crying. These would be waiters, mainly waiters, taxi drivers that I'd be talking to. They would cry and say, Mama, where were you? We needed somebody like you. So these children would struggle on in school, and then they'd drop out, because if they didn't meet their grade for each year, they have to repeat. Unlike the system in Europe, where you just go from one class to the next, irrespective of a grade, in parts of Africa, you have to meet a grade, and if you don't, you repeat and you repeat. So you could get a 15-year-old still in primary school, and they will be taller than all the other children, then out of embarrassment, they will drop out one day. Or if it's a private school, out of embarrassment by the school that they're still taking the monies from the parents and the children are not progressing, they will say enough and let the child go.
And the issue is that the teachers aren't trained to yeah. Have you been able to have any conversations with teachers about this, or talk to the Ministry of Education?
I did. When I went to do a presentation, because before I was setting up my consultancy, I had to meet with the Ministry of Education to get approval. And I did ask about the training, and they said, yes, what they say to teachers is to be aware that children have different abilities. But then that's it. There's no training. If they were to be interviewed and said, do they provide training, they would say yes, because they say those words, be aware that children have different abilities, and that's it. They don't provide any training.
Is this something that you could take some information about curricula in the UK over to Rwanda when you next go, which might inform teachers?
The way I don't have direct contact. The teachers that I did the presentation to were for private schools, so those I have some in way. And I spoke to a teacher of one private school during a human resources event, and they're quite interested in me doing some work around different learning abilities. But when it comes to the curriculum, unless you've actually got a qualification in that, then you're not allowed. Everything's governed by, qualifications. Do you have a degree in this? So I have a teacher's qualification in, what would you call it, adult and further education. So I've got that, but I don't have a degree in teaching, and I don't have a degree in teaching special needs. So straight away, they'll say no. And this is all because of what happened, during the genocide. And so they're recovering from that, and they're very careful about who puts what in the brains of the children. So even myself as a psychotherapist, they don't recognize my psychotherapy qualification from the UK, because I didn't train as a doctor or a psychologist prior to being a psychotherapist. So they're very, very specific. So hence why I said at the very beginning that I'm interested in working with providers of special needs in the UK who have started their training and maybe could come out and do a placement. But even then, the schools won't speak to me directly. These are the government schools without authority from the Ministry of Education. I mean, I did approach them to do this conference at the beginning, as I said, and what they did, they took that idea and gave it to white professionals to come in and do it, even though they said they hadn't heard of what I was talking about, but they found. And so what happens is you go to them with an idea, they pass it on and say, oh, we've identified a need. Can you support with this? And the reason why I highlight white professionals, because in their minds, white professionals have money. They have the money that can put on this event, and maybe get that, you know, some of that goes towards their services. I don't know what their
It must be very, very frustrating actually to have that happen, especially when you have come out with such a passion. You know, you have a real passion, and you know you're emotionally invested in this. To have that situation happen to you, one idea that could happen is, instead of people coming out to Rwanda with a placement at first, maybe you could pilot this by doing some Zoom talks with people in the UK and record people who are qualified, so that you have a set of Zoom talks, recorded Zoom talks, that you can actually then bring with you back to Rwanda and have as part of your hub, to get them introduced to the concepts that you're talking about before you bring people over. That might be a way of doing it, actually. And, you know, you can patent it as yours, you know, with those people who give the talk. You know, it's quite easy to patent things in the UK. You know, if you do it in the UK with UK people, you can patent it in the UK. So nobody steals your ideas. And you can make people know that too when you go back to Rwanda.
Yes, that's a very good idea.
It might be a way of doing that, actually. And it means that they have a bit more respectful of you, Kenyah, as a professional, because it's about respect as well.
It is, and it's interesting. This would be something that I produce. One of the things that I did try, which is similar, is I went on a autism course online. It was over 5 days, and I bought the package, and that's what I was going to use in the conference. We would use some of the speakers, you know, on autism, and then weave in the experience from Rwanda, and weave in my experience of working with families and autism. Not interested.
Well, they might be interested with the patented UK package, you know, which is you are championing, that you've ended up as the leader of this.
Yes, yeah, and definitely as I've spent time in Rwanda as well, I'll be able to feed in my knowledge of Rwanda in the questions that I ask. Yeah.
You know, you coming back to the UK, you know, obviously you can use that time usefully to do this sort of work. It does sound quite challenging, but it does sound as though you are actually achieving some things, in that you're raising awareness of the issues with people in the education system.
And one other idea I had was to use theatre. So I'm gathering some artists together so that we play out some of the challenges, you know, in education for children. So just, you know, a home environment, a child coming home, and the parents not speaking English, because I don't know whether you know that in Rwanda, the languages have changed over time. So it's only in 2008 that they started to learn English. Prior to that, French. And prior to
I didn't know that, and I don't think many people in the UK would know that, actually.
Yeah. So that's another problem that's faced by children when they go home. So it's not just, you know, the problems around different learning abilities, it's also the support within the home that they might not get, and then also the poverty levels. Well, so when they get home, there might not be any time to do chores and to do homework because they're busy doing their chores.
That's interesting. Economically, you know, how is Rwanda doing since the genocide? Are they doing, you know, you talked to me before about it being quite an entrepreneurial hub, but you know, how is the entrepreneurship influencing the people there, and how are they managing economically?
Well, Well, if we think economically, then the number of industries that invest in Rwanda, definitely tourism, hospitality and tourism. Then you've got recycling. That's quite a big industry now, and you've got coffee. That's huge, and many others that come, especially even cars are coming in from Korea, like there's no tomorrow. So the industries are there. They're providing employment for those that can speak English and join. For those that can't, there's the cleaning. Every business requires a cleaner, so there are cleaning services that those who haven't had any education can take up. They are supported with medical insurance, so even though they're not in employment and they're struggling, they do get medical insurance, and they're supported with health. Food, there are food charities that are set up to support them.
Okay, so it sounds like Rwanda is actually doing quite well.
It's the new Dubai. It's a miniature version of Dubai. Many people are going there to set up businesses. It's the place for now, and it's also the new Turkey. And lots of people used to go to Turkey for operations. Now they're going to Rwanda. We just had an eye hospital opened up. So all these various investigative surgeries are taking place in Rwanda now, as well as other existing countries and services.
And I hear it's a very beautiful country as well.
It is. It is. It's known for its hills, and I can testify to the hills. As you know, I'm quite a keen marathon runner. So yeah, it's very good. It's very clean. We have Umuganda at the last Saturday of every month, and Umuganda means community coming together and cleaning itself, cleaning the country, the streets and the roads. So that's what's happening, and the president is very keen on exercise. So again, fortnightly we have a car-free zone Sundays where everybody comes out, but those that can, and they exercise.
Well, it sounds like a very dynamic society. I'm going to just finish off with just one final sort of question, really. I suppose it's more seeking your observations, because it sounds absolutely fascinating, your experiences there in Rwanda. It sounds challenging, but fascinating. And it sounds like you have made some achievements, but there's more to go. And so in a sense, this recording is also, when we send it out, we also hope that people have heard you and they might reach out and support you with your work, Kenyah. So the final question is, how different do you think these Rwandan experiences are to other places where you've had your practice? I know that in the main it's been the UK, but how different has it been for you to be there?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is the experience of being curious, not jumping in and thinking that I can solve everything. Though we've been brought up to be aware that because of colonialization that we're us British born and British to go to countries and think we know it all. So I knew not to do that when I first got there. So that was the theory. But in practice, my body language wasn't following through. But now it has, and it happens with each time I go to immigration, and I become more curious and I become less worried and less panicky that, oh, I'm not going to get to do what I want to do. I'm going to be, I'm not going to be given a visa. So whereas now I think of, I call it offer and acceptance. So this is a country where I've had to offer and wait for them to accept and realize that it's a journey. Sometimes I work as if I'm working. I wake up in the morning, what am I to do today? What am I to do today? And it's not like that. So that a lot of the time has been spent living the culture, living the experience of Rwandans, getting into their heads, eating their food, asking questions, learning the language. They love me because I pronounce muramutse neza with a sort of a Rwandan accent. And I can say, Miriwe, I know the different times to change the greeting, and I greet everybody that I meet. I'm a dancer, so I'm always dancing and laughing. So it's been different because here I've got to live the experience. I've been here the longest. I've lived in other parts in the world, but Rwanda's been the longest. While I've been in Rwanda, I have visited Uganda. Their experience of working with different abilities is very different. They're more advanced. I've actually teamed up with Dr. Njuki, who's very supportive of me and the work that I'm doing. And he's even shown me how the education board, the examination board, have taken on the similar type of reasonable adjustments that we have in our exam systems. So that's a goal that I'd like to reach. I've also been to Kenya, and there they've got centres and departments that are geared towards different learning abilities, and they'll also support as well. So what's been different is that I haven't given up. I'm using my passion as well. Before I was, I'm a psychotherapist, and I know that I belong to a family, and I've worked, using those ideas. But because I'm neurodivergent, and also because I have yourselves, I have the Waltham Forest Disability Association's advocacy program and leadership program, because I have those backing me. I've got the support, and also the advocates. Please, hand up to all of you for your support. And the support has been through listening to your lived experiences. And every time one of us says, oh, and this is what's happening to me, it gives meaning to what I'm going through. Because for me as a person, I'm living what I'm doing in Rwanda. So dyspraxia, I only started to notice it while I was in Rwanda and name it because of the advocates. Somebody saying, oh, I've been experiencing this, and I've had an assessment, and it's called dyspraxia. Then I've gone to do further research and say, that's what I'm going through. So that's worked alongside with me, and that's helping me as well, because I don't have all the services we have in the UK. Is it PIP services like that support?
Oh yeah, which is through benefits as well. Yeah,
that's it. So I don't have any of the benefits, so I have to literally pace myself, especially walking up the stairs. Like before, I would be falling down the stairs, because in Rwanda, the steps are not marked when you get to the end of each step. So now I use my mindfulness, and I have to be in the moment as I walk. So that's one of the key differences, that I'm living with Rwandans, and I'm thinking, how they think, and I'm asking questions, And the other thing about where I work and working with the individuals there, so it's not just the children, but the adults are also telling me that conversation we had the other day, because one person said in particular, I'm not able to listen to my manager. And I noticed that when I was talking to you, because what I didn't realize I was doing is I was bringing him back with my questions. So he will be grounded. So we found ways for him to be able to say to his manager, though I did very well at the interview, I find on a daily basis, when you're giving me assignments to do, tasks to do, because I haven't got pen and paper to hand, or I'm embarrassed to take a pen and paper and note down what you're saying, I forget. So I wonder if after a conversation, can you send me an email to support what you've said? And do I have permission that we have a once a week catch up so I don't fall behind? So those are the sorts of conversations I'm having. And I've recently joined a hub of HR professionals. And I gave a brief talk about what I do, and they're inviting me to work alongside them.
It does take time, Kenyah. I know myself, it takes time. And, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. You're networking hugely, aren't you? With fellow professionals over there, and the more you network, the stronger you are. It also sounds like you feel almost at home there now. You are at home, aren't you?
I do, and it's what's the struggle is I'm not sure. I need to look at the regulations within the UK. That at what point do they cut you off and say, right, you can no longer have a bank account, you can no longer have this because you're in Rwanda. I've been coming back every year. So I don't think it's that time yet. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to decide. Some people know and they stay there because they've got children in Rwanda. They've married Rwandans. But for me, I think every day I'm told, "Oh, you sound British," or a British person. Well, we would identify with each other because of my accents and things like that. But yes, and I don't know. I feel Rwanda because sometimes I have a conversation with a friend here, and I'll say, "Oh, here we would do this." I say, "Oh, sorry, I'm not in Rwanda. I'm in the UK." But it's a lovely country, and from there, I've been invited to Botswana, Kenya and Uganda, and I'm getting in because of Hash. I do sports, so Hash is the trekking and walking group that's all over the world. So that's giving me a way in as well. Like you said, through networking, I'm getting in. But yes, I feel comfortable there. But there are struggles as well.
And it's absolutely okay to have several homes, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
and yes,
and I think it's the way of the world now, actually, that more people have several homes. Well, I want to thank you so much, Kenyah Nyameche. I hope I've said that name correctly, because it's been absolutely fascinating insight into the groundbreaking work that you're doing. So I want to, on behalf of Waltham Forest Dyslexia Association adult meetups, we all would like to thank you. Kenyah, systemic therapist, clinical supervisor, writer, workshop facilitator, public convener, and coach, we thank you. And I want to particularly thank Kenyah, actually, because you are helping me tomorrow with the mayor's event in Waltham Forest, and the mayor has actually nominated WFDA as her preferred charity while she's mayor, because she is neurodivergent and a Black lady too. So Kenyah is helping me with that event tomorrow. So I just wanted to have a plug there for Kenyah, in that she has stood up and she is going to come and help me tomorrow. So have you got one final word you'd like to say before we finish the recording, Kenyah?
I'm a dyslexic. I don't know whether I've got one final word, but it was just to have a plug that if anybody feels that they can support me in the work that I'm doing, whether it's advice and support around fundraising, advice on how to set up a charity or a foundation, I'd very much appreciate that. I know you're all doing good works in your various organizations. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'll put your contact details in the email when I send the recording out. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.